Hi there, hope you're doing really, really well today. It is our second Insomnia Open class of the newer format, where instead of answering questions that were submitted ahead of time, we answer questions live. And by we today, I mean myself. It's only myself here today, but in the future, there will be other coaches as well. And actually, in fact, I'm dog sitting and the dog is trying to get my attention. Her name is Reina. She might join as well. But in the meantime, as we're waiting for some questions to pop up here, I wanted to just share something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I intend to make a separate video on this topic, but I'll share it here as we wait for questions. And this is a topic of what I call the North Star. As I was, over the past several years, I've been meaning to, share my thoughts on insomnia and create a way to make this a living as well. So I read a lot of like entrepreneurship business books and things of that nature. And something that often comes up is that in an enterprise that does well, it tends to be that there is no micromanaging. That people who are working for this enterprise, whatever it is, are not being told exactly what to do every single day. By the way, I see some people are here live, so please, if you have some questions, please submit them in the comments, and I'll answer them. So again, in these enterprises, it tends to not be that people are micromanaged, but rather on an individual level or on a group level, they're told to, they're given sort of North Star. They're told, this is our vision. This is what we would like to see happen, but you figure it out. You use your resources however you would like to see this thing happen. So people are given a North Star, but they're at the discretion to do whatever they would like to do to see that happen. And that tends to be the thing that helps, that kind of gets the results that we want. And if we think about ourselves, we're probably like that. Meaning, if you ask yourself, oh, Meghan has a question live. I'm going to be answering that in a second. Let me just finish the analogy here. If we think about ourselves, if I ask myself, like, what do I prefer? Do I prefer being micromanaged, told exactly what to do, and somebody looking over me, or do I prefer getting like a North Star, somebody telling me this is what we'd like to see happen, and you, Daniel, you can figure out how to make that happen? Of course, I prefer the second, right? I can use my creativity and my own resources at my will. So, and I think most of us are like that. And so, I think the same thing. And here's the thing with the North Star: I think the same thing applies like internally. When we have trouble sleeping, we often go into that mindset of like, I have to control everything. I have to control my emotions, my thoughts, my environment, and things like that, which actually just creates more anxiety and preoccupation, etc. But when we sort of give our brain the North Star and let it figure out the details, I think that really helps. And that North Star can be for example, be I can be less attached to sleep. If I sleep a lot or sleep a little on any given day, I can become less attached to that. And exactly how that happens, we may not know. How does that magic happen? We don't know. But again, if we sort of give the brain a North Star and let it figure it out, I think that really helps. So more on that later. But now let's go into our Insomnia Open class here. And I want to thank Meghan for sending this. And before we start, of course, as always, nothing is medical advice, just me sharing some general thoughts here. Meghan says, hey, coach, I have a question. Is it normal for your insomnia to go from being sleep onset insomnia and then shift over to sleep maintenance insomnia? And the short answer is yes. That is very, 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 very normal and common. And when I coach, I have a whole like spiel about why this happens, and a pre-programmed, like a pre-written type answer. And I'm just sharing that to share with you, Meghan, and everybody else. It is very, very common. But it can be scary because our brain is this kind of survival machine, like a safety machine. And whenever something new happens, it can think, "Oh no, this is new. Something's different." And it can be kind of scary. But in reality, the way I see it is that it is the same thing that manifesting in two different ways. So when we have insomnia, is really it's something that happens when we have become scared of not sleeping. It's a form of fear, right? And for some people, that fear can manifest in the evening when somebody's really scared of, oh, what if I don't sleep? And then it takes them a long time to fall asleep, right? Or it can manifest during the night. somebody can wake up and then be like, what if I don't fall back asleep? Why am I awake? And then it becomes trouble, staying asleep. So, it's very, very common to have both. It's very common to go from one to the other. And I think, the final thing I want to say here is that when we understand this and see that, okay, I see why this is happening, nothing strange or unusual. And when I'm no longer scared of not sleeping or not scared of being awake, then both will fade out. So I want to thank you for that question, Megan, and hope it made sense. And again, very valuable question. I think a lot of people have the very same one. All right, so we will move ahead to a question from Libby, who says the following. When I first read your book, I almost immediately started sleeping better. Merely reading that I shouldn't be stressing out about sleep was enough to get me to stop stressing. A couple of weeks later, though, my son hit a sleep regression and my daughter started waking up due to nightmares. Ever since, I've been struggling to get back on track. I tried rereading the book, but that didn't give me the same peace of mind as before. I keep finding myself getting anxious as I get closer to bedtime, which didn't happen before. And actually, Laura says, I'm exactly the same as you, Libby. All right. So let's spend some time on this very, very common situation. And in fact, I recently, if you haven't seen it, Libby or Lara, do check out the episode where I called I called it something about like how when the sleep honeymoon ends. And this like sleep honeymoon is very, very common. And it's actually, if of all the stories I hear, it's most commonly after somebody reads Set It and Forget It and just starts understanding and getting this insight, and that leads to sleeping well. And this is kind of the sleep honeymoon where things are getting so easy just from reading maybe a few chapters of the book. And I think there are a couple of things that are really helpful to see. One is that sleeping easier always comes from the same place. It comes from trying less. The more we try to sleep, the less we sleep. The less we try, the more we sleep. So how can reading a book lead us to trying less to sleep? Well, oftentimes it is just hope. It is just seeing like, oh, this will help me. This book, this understanding, that will help me sleep. I don't have to try so much to sleep anymore. That alone can give us this kind of sleep honeymoon. But in reality, we may not have kind of full understanding or internalization of the teachings yet. So it can be that kind of this hope that leads us to trying less, and that gives us the sleep honeymoon. But then naturally, there's going to be stressors. There always are stresses in our lives. Like our child can go through a sleep regression, our kid can have nightmares, and then we wake up, our sleep is disrupted, and then the sort of like old fears come back. What if I don't sleep now? Wait, Set It and Forget It. The book stopped working. What's wrong? What am I doing differently? And then we can even try to do exactly what we did the last time. So we can try to reread Set It and Forget It. But now there's nothing new. Like we've already read it once, right? So this is Reina just barking a little bit. So I'm actually holding her so she won't. But anyway, so we can try doing the exact same thing, but now it's a sleep effort, right? Now we're trying to read a book so that we can sleep again. So I think the key here is to see that the sort of sleep honeymoon is real. Like it shows that there's nothing wrong with us. We can sleep. There's nothing broken within us, but it may have come from like the hope, just kind of the initial kind of seeing that, okay, there is something here that will help me, rather than maybe kind of really taking that inner journey, right? Really sitting with our fears, really understanding ourselves. And that's where I think the invitation is. When we have this sort of speed bump, then we have this invitation to really learn about ourselves, learn about our fears, and learn about sleep. More than learning about sleep, learning about ourselves, I would say. So I think when this happens, I would say something that's really helpful is actually checking out our speed bump playlist, because it teaches us so many things. It teaches us, for example, that when we try to recreate magic, when we try to like do the same thing again because it helped the first time, then we haven't understood that it was the absence of trying that helped us that first time. So I think I would leave it there, Libby. I hope that makes sense. Again, check that playlist. I think it'll be really helpful. And yeah, stay in touch and let us know. By the way, Meghan comes back and says, thank you, that makes sense. I can probably start implementing the same mindset on the sleep maintenance that I did on my sleep onset. I think that's the way. I really think it is the same thing, and if we approach both the same way, both fade, and everything becomes easier. All right, so let's move on and read a question from John 17 here. It says, "Hi Daniel, I have PTSD and sometimes I wake up very tired and can't go back to sleep. I spoke to Carl Merciana and he said not to worry, but it really scared me because of Richard Siagan." Okay, so I see where this is. We kind of I understand sort of the underlying fears here, because Richard Siagan has a YouTube channel and I think he said or he alluded to having fatal insomnia, and Carl Merciana also at some point was afraid he had that. And when we've had this idea that, okay, there is a thing called fatal insomnia, that can be really, really scary. But I think, one thing I just want to open with here is to say that sporadic fatal insomnia, fatal insomnia, familial fatal insomnia, in my opinion, are just like they should never have been called insomnias because they have nothing to do with insomnia. Insomnia is when we're scared, we're worried, we're preoccupied, we can't understand what's going on, we're confused, and that's why we don't sleep, right? Versus these conditions that have been labeled insomnias, they're actually neurological conditions where there's no component of fear or confusion. It's just that there's a sort of damage to the brain where our sleep becomes more like that of a six week old or something. It just becomes hard to tell if the person having this condition is asleep or not. So to me, that has nothing to do with insomnia. Insomnia is something completely different. And now, having waking up tired, can't go back to sleep. That sounds quite typical to like insomnia. And so I think browsing the content we have on this channel can really help. I was also really glad to hear that Carl said that not to worry. Um, I think that's always a nice thing to hear from someone who's struggled a lot. And finally, and I think again, like the main thing that I want to share here is that what we are scared of when we watch something like Richard Siagan's channel is not insomnia. That is not insomnia. It's nothing to do with insomnia. Insomnia is about fear, and when we see that there's nothing to be scared of, then sleep happens easier and easier. I hope that helped, John. And Jonathan is here and says, "I finally managed to catch a live open class. Thanks for listening to my tips, Daniel. And I really hope this new format works." And Chuck goes, "Oh, that's amazing." And I just want to share with everyone that Jonathan here was the one who suggested, number one, that we name this Insomnia Open Class so people know what it's about, and two, set it as a premiere so people know when it's at. John says, "Is Richard Siagan a true story?" I've tuned into some of Richard Siagan's videos, and to me, again, nothing medical advice, just me sharing my thoughts. I think that it's pretty clear to me that was not fatal. That was not fatal insomnia that was going on there. Okay, let's see. Lara says, "Can maladaptive daydreaming lead to severe insomnia?" This question can be kind of tricky because you can easily, like, as a person being asked this question, you could easily go like, "What is maladaptive daydreaming?" And I have to understand that to answer the question. But in reality, I think the answer is quite simple, and the answer to me is going to be no, because there's only one thing that can lead to insomnia, and that is fear of not sleeping. And so uh, it's a very similar question to people asking, like, can this cause insomnia? Is it my diet? Is it my age? Is it my hormones? Is it the medications? Is it coming off of medications? And none of that can cause insomnia. Many things can cause us to have disrupted sleep. Wake up and like having pain, for example, can make us wake up a lot of times at night. But that's just being awake. Then I'm awake because of pain or something like that. This dream, I had a daydream that was maybe like maladaptive. Like I had some type of unpleasant daydream, and then we can maybe remember that daydream at night. It wakes us up, and we're like, "Oh, that was a scary daydream." But there's nothing strange about that. We're just like, "Oh, I know why I wake up. I'm sort of thinking about that daydream, and that's the end of that, right?" But insomnia is completely different. Insomnia is when it's like a self-perpetuating, ongoing struggle where the fear of not sleeping keeps us from sleeping, right? So I think the only thing that can cause insomnia, in my opinion, is being scared of being awake. Nothing else can really cause it. All right, so we have some comments here from Jonathan, who says, "Oh, Jonathan's kind of replying to John here and saying, I'm sure it's the cause of social fear in Richard's videos." All right. Megan says, it's said that insomnia isn't even the first symptom of that really rare disease. It's usually accompanied by side effects that, yeah, exactly. This is, I believe this is very true as well. That's like when it comes to spread fatal insomnia, like, well, first of all, I don't think really that person has insomnia because they're not scared of not sleeping. It's just that they're awake. Like like again, a 6-week-old child, it's hard to tell if they're awake or not. But also this the sleep changes are not a first thing that happens. Okay, Lara says, I don't mean a bad day. I mean being unable to break out of constant daydreaming and preferring those pleasant thoughts to sleep. Uh, yeah, I think if somebody's sort of constantly daydreaming, like I think many people do that, and I don't think that can cause us to have insomnia again. Preferring those pleasant thoughts to sleep. Oh, okay. It's kind of like I'm not sleeping because I'm constantly daydreaming. Those thoughts are so pleasant that they keep me awake or something like that. Yeah, I think that again, like the only thing that can cause insomnia is when we're scared of not sleeping. And if somebody is like having such pleasant, having thinking these like kind of daydreaming, having these pleasant thoughts, and it's so nice to think about that. It's so pleasant that they don't sleep. That's just like somebody who plays video games really late, right? Somebody plays Counter Strike until 5 a.m. and then finally they sleep for a few hours, right? That's not insomnia. That's just something is keeping us up, and that's just wakefulness. When we're awake and we're not scared of being awake, then we're just awake. When we're awake and scared of being awake, that's insomnia. That's a struggle. John 17 says there's a difference between anxiety and genuine illness, and I agree with this. I mean, I would say another way to formulate this that I've heard I think can be really helpful is to talk about what's the word I'm looking for here? Yeah, to illness and feeling ill. Like we can feel unwell without being, we can feel unwell without being sick, And anxiety, I think when we were very anxious, we feel unwell without being sick or having an illness like that. I believe that is very true. Lara Blackburn says, haha, I'm scared. I'm awake and scared of being awake. Yeah, I think, firstly, I want to say that whenever somebody adds an LOL or a haha or something like that, that to me is always really encouraging. When that tells me that there is a little bit of distance between what's happening and and ourselves, if we will. We can see things happening from a little bit of distance, and we can smile at what's happening. We can smile at our own thoughts. We can smile at our own emotions and our reactions and stuff like that. And that when we're not completely sort of inside the struggle, I think that's always really helpful. So whenever I see a haha like this side, that makes me glad. It makes me smile. And then the other part, like I am awake and scared of being awake. Yeah, it's a very good point. Like we can see that we are awake, even if we're awake at night or in the evening, and nothing is actually happening to us. It's not like that wakefulness is damaging us or hurting us in any way. And we see that I'm awake and I'm scared of being awake, but I can also see that there's nothing to really be scared of. I think that can really, really help. Lara continues to say, I think it might be a Gen Z language thing, but I use haha because I'm unnerved. I see that could be the case. I might have misinterpreted that, and sorry about that. Sorry about misunderstanding that. But I still, what I said before, I think is still true. When somebody is in a place where they can smile at themselves or smile at what's going on inside, that can be helpful. But sorry that you're unnerved, of course, Lara. But I hope what you find here will help. All right, I think this is going to be our last question today from Peggy. I have insomnia so bad that I have not been able to take a nap even one time. Then approximately 4 weeks ago, I finally started getting strong, tired urges, not fatigue. I took this as a win. Is this a valid thought? Secondly, I've been doing the sleep restriction for 8 weeks now, but I still get only 3 to 4 hours of sleep. I did wean off meds, and I'm completely off and getting discouraged that the program isn't working for me. If I wake up with some, which normally doesn't happen, but if I is okay. I think that it probably cut off there, the message, but I think there's still plenty of things to talk about there. Firstly, you know, I think when we think in terms of like win or lose or like good or bad, that's a little tricky because uh, if we think about somebody who has no struggle with sleep whatsoever, then we can see that they also have no relationship with sleep whatsoever. It's sort of like breathing. Like we don't think of ourselves as a good breather or a bad breather, or like I took a breath, I won, or I didn't breathe, like I lost. It's just like something that happens. And when we don't no longer have a relationship with sleep, when we don't think I'm a good sleeper or I'm a bad sleeper, I think that can really help. And like thinking in terms of like winning and losing, good or bad, can lead us into this performance anxiety thing. Like I gotta get this. I want to be a winner. I want to win, etc. That said, I just want to clarify that language a little bit. That said, I think when someone is starting to feel tired, starting to feel sleepy, and maybe they have a nap, that is a nice sign. I think that is a really, really, really nice sign that shows that that hyper arousal that keeps us from sleeping, whether it's during the day or the night, has started to fade. And that to me really is a sign that this person is starting to understand things, starting to let go. Because really hyperarousal fades from, I think, education and also from like not trying to stop the hyperarousal. So education and letting things go, at least less hyperarousal. We take a nap, really, really nice sign. Now, the second thing was like, okay, I'm being discouraged because I've been doing sleep restriction and I'm still only sleeping this amount of time. To me, this speaks of the tricky thing with like the traditional CBTI approach to things and the implied controllability. Like, you know, a CBTI therapist will not tell you you can control your sleep. This is how you control it, and in 2 weeks you're going to sleep 7 hours, and we're going to, you know, we got that under control. Nobody will say that, but it is sort of implied. It is implied that if you just get up early and you make yourself stay up late, then you will sleep. It is implied that you can control sleep. Also, within traditional CBTI, is sort of encouraged to keep track, to measure how many times you woke up, to measure how long you slept, and to calculate a sleep efficiency, to try to just titrate a sleep window and things of that nature. And I think this leads to so much performance anxiety again, right? Just like win or lose thinking can lead to performance anxiety, so can this kind of traditional sleep restriction, you know, stimulus control type of approach lead to so much performance anxiety. So I think it's very common and typical, actually, that after many, many weeks of sleep restriction or CBTI, you know, things haven't changed because, uh, you know, the approach is it's tricky. You know, the idea is that if we just make ourselves really sleepy, we'll sleep. But again, that's kind of like this win lose thinking, and we're approaching it like a, you know, from in a very forceful way, and we cannot force sleep. So I think this is very, very normal and typical. And I think when we approach things a little bit differently, things are much easier when we have the sort of the timeless sleep window, befriending wakefulness, things that we talk about here. I think can help so much more. So I would say, just to Peggy and everybody else, like if you study the content on this channel, you will find an approach that I think is gentler and more effective than traditional CBTI, in my opinion. So I want to thank everybody for showing up today. It was really, really nice getting a chance to talk to you. And if you like what you're hearing here and you find all the answers in the free content, and they are all there, all the answers are there, that's amazing, that's wonderful. But if anyone would like to get some guidance in seeing the answers, finding the answers, and leaving the struggle with sleep, then head over to our website. Check out our coaching options, and we would love to get a chance to work with you. With that said, I want to thank everyone for attending today's Insomnia Open class, and I look forward to having you back